Okay, hello everyone, welcome back. So today's problem is based on rotation and a little bit of magnetism. So in this problem, we have a uniform ring whose radius is capital R and the mass is given to be small m. So it has some positively charged, it has a positive charge of capital Q that is distributed on it. Okay, so there is friction on the ground and its friction coefficient is given to be mu. Okay, and then we have a static magnetic field B that is into the page. Okay, so the magnetic field is into the page. At time t equal to 0, the ring has an initial translational velocity of v0 directed towards the east and the ring is not rotating. So the first question is, in order for the ring to remain in contact with the ground during its subsequent motion, find the allowable range of the initial velocity v0. So what should be v0 so that the ring does not leave contact with the ground? Now for the second question is, if part 1 is true, whatever that velocity range is, if that velocity range is assumed, then what is the relationship between v and t? Okay, and the third question, if they gave a specific value of v0, so we have to find the time at which the ring attains pure rolling. Okay, so let's begin the discussion. So basically this is the diagram. Okay, so now the thing is, for the first part, the main idea is that we need to ensure that we need to study in which situation does normal reaction become zero, because this is the situation in which the contact is lost, right? So of course the idea is to apply Newton's laws, right? So the thing is, we need to find out the magnetic force acting on the ring. Okay, so now of course for that, what we'll do is we'll take an element, right? Let's say of charge dq and write down the Lorentz force on this, right? So as we only have a magnetic field here, the force is going to be dq multiplied by the velocity vector of charge dq cross b. QV cross V, right? So, and then we are going to integrate it for the entire ring to find out the net Lorentz force acting on the ring. Okay, and that is what we'll be doing. The thing is, there is also an alternate approach, which is, out of your syllabus, but I'll just briefly discuss it over here. So, and that is by doing a frame transformation. So if I start observing the situation with a frame moving along the x direction, with a speed v0, okay, then of course initially this ring will appear to be at rest. So, but the thing is, when we do this frame transformation, the fields also transform. Okay, so there is a certain rule to transform. It's not just the kinematic variables that transform. So of course, if according to this frame of reference that moves with a speed v0, the ring's initial velocity will be 0, right? It will be at rest. But the frames also transform, and they transform according to a certain rule. And that rule I'm just going to state because this is not really part of your syllabus. So the electric fields, the new electric field in the new frame of reference is the electric field in the original frame of reference. So we'll write it down as E vector and plus V vector cross B vector. Okay, so here the E and B are the electric field and magnetic field in the original frame of reference, right? Which is basically the ground frame of reference in the current problem. And the magnetic field transforms as the original magnetic field minus V vector cross E vector divided by C squared. Okay. Now, of course, this can't, we can't really prove this using what we have in JEE syllabus. In order to prove this, we need some undergraduate level physics. Now, the thing is, as we are dealing with velocities that are significantly smaller than the speed of light, right? So this particular V0 over here, this is of course significantly smaller than C. So you can basically drop this term out, right? Of the current from the equation. So essentially the magnetic field, it remains the same, right? It approximately remains the same under this velocity limit, but the electric field of course has a change. Okay, so while we do the frame transformation, essentially whenever we have V much smaller than C, the magnetic field in the new frame is almost the same. The electric field is the original electric field, and you need to vectorially add V vector cross B vector to it. Okay, so that's the idea. So in this case, in this particular scenario, if you apply it, the magnetic field still remains B. The electric field has an additional the new electric field will be 0 plus V cross B, right? So V0 cross B is a vector that is pointing upwards and its magnitude is V0B. So this is the new electric field. So basically there is a constant electric field of V naught B in the upward direction. And after that, it is pretty simple, right? So if we have a constant electric field of V naught B acting upwards, the net force acting on the ring will be Q into E, right? So it's V naught B multiplied with the total charge Q V naught B. Okay, and after that, it's just mechanics. Okay, so now because this is actually not part of our syllabus, we'll just use the standard method also. Okay, so the standard method is, of course, we need to take a charge element, okay, somewhere on the ring. We'll call that dq, and its position vector relative to the center of the ring, we'll call it r vector. Okay, so of course, and then we write down the force in vector form on this dq charge. It is dq v vector cross b vector, right? Okay, so now in order to write v vector, velocity vector of this dq charge, we use the center of mass. So if this point is P, Vp, velocity of point P, is equal to velocity of P with respect to the center of mass plus velocity of the center of mass, right? Just simple relative motion idea. So velocity of the center of mass is V naught, and velocity with respect to center of mass is omega cross r vector, right? Which is the omega r that we just directly write without any cross product. So the resultant velocity of point P effectively will become V naught I cap plus omega cross r. Okay, and this r vector is the position vector with respect to the center O of the ring, right? So that is how we write the velocity vector of the dq charge, and b vector is of course a constant. Okay, now so now what we'll do is we'll use distributive property. So dq v naught cross b, that is a first term, and the second term is dq omega cross r crossed with b vector. This is the second term. Okay, so now the first term is pretty simple. It's this thing over here inside the bracket is a constant vector. So when we integrate df vector, why are we integrating df vector? We need the resultant force on the ring to apply F equal to ma, right? In order to apply F equal to ma, we need the resultant force. So that's why we are integrating the Lorentz force. So once we integrate it, the first term, it just becomes q v naught vector cross b vector, because v naught vector cross b vector is a constant vector, right? And if you do the cross product, this is that same term which we figured out using the transformation of field idea, right? Which is q v naught b in the upward direction. Okay, and the second integral is just 0. It just vanishes, and this is very easy to observe. So omega cross r, this is the omega r term that we are used to. So if you take this dq charge, the omega r term is like this. It's in the tangential direction, right? And if you cross it with the magnetic field, it is into the page. So that vector is pointing outward, radially outward. So this is the direction of omega cross r vector cross b vector. Okay, now if you choose a diametrically opposite point, over here omega cross r is in this direction, and if you once again do omega cross r cross b vector, it's in the outward direction. So basically these two cancel out symmetrically, and that is true for any two diametrically opposite points on the ring. Okay, so this particular when you integrate them, when you integrate terms part of the second integral or the second term, they just vanish for the entire ring. Okay, so ultimately the net force is just this q v naught b in the upward direction, just as we observed in this particular slide, right? The resultant Lorentz force remains the same, right? The net electric force plus the magnetic force, it remains the same. It doesn't depend upon the frame of reference which you are using. Okay, so you can observe using this frame of reference which is moving with the speed v naught, or the ground frame itself. In both these frames, the net Lorentz force is the same. Okay, and of course it is equal to q v naught b in the upward direction. Now after we find this out, it's basically just mechanics after this point. Okay, and also the net torque due to the magnetic force will be 0, and that also you can just see. Now because of the second term, it is of course 0, because this particular term over here, it is radially outwards, right? So about the point O, if you are looking at the torque contribution, this component just passes through this point O. So the component of torque due to the second term will be 0. Now the first term, of course, this dq v naught cross b is a v naught cross b is a force that is acting along the y direction. So if I say that on this dq charge, the force is, let's say, some df along the y direction. Okay, because of this first component, I can easily choose another dq component over here, and here also it will be the same df, right? And it's very obvious why the net torque, if you take these two charges together, the net torque about the point O will be 0. Okay, so yeah, that's why the net torque will also be 0 because of the magnetic field. All right, so after this, all we have to for finding out the condition, we needed to find out the condition in which the normal force started to become 0. Okay, so if you look at the FBD of the ring, we have this constant force of QVB and mg and normal, right? So if QVB is greater than mg, then the ring is lifted up from the ground. So QVB, so that critical velocity V0, it should be just equal to mg in the limiting case. Okay, and from that we get that velocity as mg divided by qb. So the speed V0 needs to be smaller than mg by qb, right? Otherwise it will lose contact with the ground. Okay, if it is greater than mg by qb, then this qvb will be greater, which means the ring will start accelerating along the y direction. All right, so now after that is done. So that is the answer to the first question, and the initial velocity V0 should be less than or equal to mg divided by qb. Now for the second question, if V0 lies in the range found in the first part, we need the relationship between V and T. Okay, translational speed V and T. So this is an F equal to ma problem, right? So then there is only one force along the x direction, one resultant force along the x direction, and that is the friction force. Okay, so and friction force, because it's kinetic in nature, right? We are talking about the start, right? Before pure rolling is achieved. So of course friction will be kinetic. So we can write it as mu times the normal reaction, right? Normal reaction is mg minus qvb, and friction, we'll put a negative sign here because we are taking the direction of v vector to the right. So the friction is acting to the left. So when we write F equal to ma, it is minus Fi cap equals m times acceleration along x direction, right? That's why we put a negative sign here. So okay, so minus mu times the normal reaction equals m times dv by dt. Okay, so now it's just so now we'll separate the variables and we'll integrate. The initial limit is v0 at any general time t, let's say it is v, and after this is going to be a log integral, and after integration, this is the function of velocity versus time that we obtain. Okay, and of course this is only true if v0 is less than or equal to mg divided by qb. If it is greater than this, then all the equations that we assumed is wrong, right? Friction, normal, none of that exists if v0 is greater than this value. Now after this point, okay, so that is the second question. Now the third question, we have v0 equals mg divided by 2 qb. So this of course won't leave contact with the ground. So if this is the speed, then we need to find the time at which the ring reaches state of pure rolling. Okay, so that happens when v equals omega r. So we need to find the omega, right? We need to find how omega varies for figuring this out, and for that we need the torque, right? So the torque of friction will be F into R in the clockwise sense, and that will be equal to I about the center, which is mr squared times alpha. So yeah, Fr equals mr squared alpha. So this is going to be the angular acceleration of the. Now the thing is, if you observe, alpha is a function dependent on velocity, and velocity over here we figured out it is a function which like depends on e to the power some t, right? So if you go by the integration route, it's going to be very lengthy. So we use a slightly different approach. So we write alpha as d omega by dt, right? We write alpha as d omega by dt, and instead and on the right hand side we just write it as friction divided by mr. Okay, from here, F upon mr, and we write friction as minus ma, right? From this particular part we can write F equals minus ma. So if we write it that way, the advantage is that we now get an integral between omega and v. So we can avoid bringing time into the equation. Okay, right? We can just cut it off. So now the thing is, we can integrate once again. So the initial velocity limit is v naught. Finally, it becomes 0. And at any general v, let's say the omega is omega. And now once again, once we integrate omega, the rolling condition is that omega will become equal to v by r, right? And this will be equal to minus 1 by r times v minus v naught. Just substitute the limits. And we get that when rolling is achieved, the velocity v is v naught divided by 2. So when rolling is achieved, v equals v naught by 2. Now, because, okay, so now we know the velocity as a function of time. So we'll just substitute v equals v naught by 2 into this equation. So v naught divided by 2 instead of v in that first equation. Now the thing is, over here I have taken k equals mg divided by qb. Okay, so this mg by qb, I've written it as k. So v naught given in the question was k by 2, right? So v naught by 2 will be k by 4. So now after you do the algebra, you get the time as m divided by mu qb ln of 3 by 2. Okay, this will be the time. Okay, so yeah, that's basically the answer to the third question. Okay, so that is it for this video, guys. If you have any doubts, you can ask below. If you enjoyed the video, do like, share and subscribe. That's it. Thanks for watching.